Yo, what's up, Nexians? Max here again to bring you guys now the basic tutorial on how to rune up your gear. So here I am at a rune crafting station, and these rune crafting stations are located all over every single capital city and in several like camps and stuff all over the world as well. So the one I'm in, if you want to know where this is Crafter's Square Circle right here. And most people come in, that's the housing area right there. You come in, and the very first house on your right has a rune crafting station. And all of these houses in this area actually have a rune crafting station inside of them. But this is the one that I'm using right here. Okay, so how to rune your gear. If you press P, you'll bring up your character screen. This is the default key. And then if you hold down Shift while hovering over a piece of gear with your mouse and you right click, you can go to Edit Runes. Okay, so this will bring up this UI here. And if you have runes in your inventory, like fusion runes or other runes and stuff, you can basically take them and you can put them in your gear like so. But obviously, if you have a water rune, it has to go in a water slot. A fire rune has to go in a fire slot, and so forth. Fusion runes can go in any elemental slot. If you didn't know that, now you do. So fusion runes can take up any elemental slot, so you won't have to re-roll it. They can go in anywhere. Okay, so that's how you bring that menu up and how you'll be able to basically stick just basic runes in. If you have basic runes and you want to put them in until you can get later on and make up some set runes to put in. Okay, so just hover over, shift right click, edit runes. No problem. So now we're going to actually make some runes. So you can make basic runes, like I was just explaining. Like you can find these from mob drops, and it'll just take a few fragments and some signs, and you basically just hit craft, and it will make it. Okay, I've got a high multi-hit rune, and this is water, so I can stick this. This is item level 50, required level 40 gear. So there's different sets of runes, and you're going to want to pay attention to the required level because it's going to take at least that level of gear for the rune to be able to go in it. So you can't stick like end game runes in like low level gear. It just will not work that way. Okay, so pay attention to the level of the rune that you're going to be using, and also its elemental type. So these are the basic runes that you can make. These aren't very good. I mean, these are what most people will probably start with. And then fusion runes here, these are going to require fusion signs, which are harder to get, probably the least common sign of all of them, and fragments as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go into just here Rune Sets. Now, there's really the best way to think of this is to divide it into two types of rune sets: common rune sets and class rune sets. So common rune sets can be used by any class. Okay, they can go, you can have several different copies of them in your gear. So example, here I've got Devastation 6/6 and Onslaught 6/4. Devastation and Onslaught, these are common sets, and these can be used by any class. However, this one here, Well of Power, this is 8/8. This is a class set, and this is something that only a spell slinger can use, or can make use of, really, in their gear. Okay, so that's the difference between common sets and class sets, and each class has their own unique class sets, and then they'll be using several different, commonly shared sets like this to fill out the rest of their gear with fusion runes as well, to fill them in. Okay, so you can see basically how I've done this here. And this one here has the Flame Surge. This is my other unique class set. So this is my Divine class set, the very end game class set that they have right now for raiding for PvE. And this is my Pure class set, which comes from Genetic Archives. This one comes from Datascape. And there's only 2 of those for each class, and then the rest of them are basically going to be common sets and fusion runes is what it'll pretty much be. So if you are a DPS spec and you are anything but a medic or an engineer, then your best 2 rune sets that I would recommend, common rune sets, are going to be Devastation and Onslaught, like I've used here in my gear. So that applies to spell slingers, stalkers, espers, and warriors are going to be using these 2 common sets. And then depending on which class you are, you will have either, Flame Surge and Well of Power. These are the class sets for the spell slinger for raiding, and then Vindication is the PvP class set. So this will only go in PvP gear. If you mouse over this, you'll see it says the required item type is PvP. These rune sets will only go in PvP gear. They will not go in PvE gear. And likewise, you can't stick your PvE class sets in PvP gear. And both of these class sets, if you could look at the very bottom, so like PvP class sets are disabled in PvE instances, which is dungeons and raids, and likewise the raiding class sets are disabled in PvP instances. So you can't just load up with raid gear and raid runes and then go queuing up for battlegrounds and running people over. Used to, not anymore. So don't have to worry about that. Good news. Alright, so now if you are a medic or you are an engineer, now you're going to be focusing on a different stat priority. That's going to be multi-hit and multi-hit severity. So your common sets I would recommend to start out with would be Striker for multi-hit chance and multi-hit severity, and then Pulse for more critical hit or multi-hit rating, and it'll also give you a bit of extra multi-hit chance and health. Okay, so these are going to be your common sets that you're going to want to use for a DPS, for a engineer, or a medic. And if you are tanking on any of these roles, if you want to be tanking, your common sets I would recommend to use would be Elevation, Critical Hit Mitigation, Maximum Health, Armor, okay, and Defiance. Yes, here for glance chance and glance mitigation. So this is going to reduce, when you get hit critically, it will reduce that damage. You also have a chance to glance, which reduces the damage automatically, and then again it will reduce that damage even further. Armor is just true damage mitigation. It's the opposite of armor penetration. Okay, so those are going to be your tanking basic common sets, and then whatever class sets that you have. Okay, so you'll have to check out each class has their offensive and defensive class sets for PvP and PvE. So you'll want to check those out and learn those, but then your common sets you can fill in with these. So tanking, elevation, and defiance. And now if you are healing, I would recommend common sets to be, I have to go back to my spell slinger here, Resurgence for critical hit chance and focus recovery. So this will give you nice critical hits on your heals, and the basic idea with this, with healing, is a lot of healers find it good to increase their focus pool and their focus recovery rate so that their basic heal, whether it be runic healing or emissions, see how this has a very low focus cost and emission has a very low focus cost. You want to basically make it so this has a 0 focus cost, so that your focus recovery and your focus pool will exceed the cost of this spell so that you can cast it freely, ideally. And then once you've done that, once you've got it to the point where you can start to cast it freely, then you want to start to add Cynosure here and increase more multi-hit and focus recovery, but concentration. How intensity works is that it increases the actual amount of healing, but also increases the focus cost of it. So it's a balance between getting your heals up to the point where this is free cast, and then increasing it a little more with intensity, making it cost more focus, but this set also increases your focus pool and focus recovery rate with concentration. So I would stack mostly Resurgence and get your focus recovery rate up as high as you can with this and with your amp points, and then get focus pool and focus recovery, and just try to keep your intensity as low as you can, but as much as you can with, and still keep this free cast. Okay, so those are going to be your common sets for healing, and then your own class sets. Now for fusion runes, these are a little bit more personal preference. If you are anything but a medic or an engineer that uses critical hit chance and critical hit severity. For the weapon, for PvP, I would recommend using the Bludgeon rune. For PvE, I would recommend using Mordecai Remin's Ammunition fusion rune for the weapon. For the helmet, fusion rune, I'd recommend Deadly Blows for both PvP or PvE. Shoulders don't get a fusion rune. For the chest, I'd recommend Flurry for both PvP and PvE. For the gloves, True Strike, both PvP and PvE. And now for boots, I prefer Quick Feet, but Sprinter is also another viable one that increases your movement speed while you're sprinting. But if you get dazed and you lose all of your sprinting power, or if you just run out, you can't do that. Where dashes, I find, refund faster, and I can use it while I'm sprinting and get an even more fast boost. And I can't be stopped once I've dashed. I have that movement speed for the duration. It's not a condition that I need endurance to be able to sprint to get it. So I just prefer that one. And that fills through the fusion runes, the common sets, and if you're using PvP gear, use PvP class sets. PvE gear, PvE class sets. Alright, if you guys have any more specific further questions on how this works, I'll just end this here with the fusion rune recommendations for medics and engineers. Before I forget, so medics and engineers for the weapon and bludgeon is going to be best in slot for PvP, and Mordecai Remy's ammunition is still best in slot for PvE. An alternative to Mordecai Remy's ammunition, if it's too expensive or if people can't find them, is Siphon. You can actually make Siphon runes, but you have to make them of at least superb quality. And then this one here, Siphon, is actually a decent alternative to Mordecai Remy's ammunition. So direct damage attacks have a 20% chance to deal magic damage to the target and heal you for the same amount. It can only occur every 1 second, but if you're attacking quickly, that's actually very decent, and it's a direct damage proc that heals you. So I find that's it's not as much damage, it's not as good as bludgeon, but I'd find that's a decent alternative. Or ambusher perhaps, other than Siphon, one or these two. And if you are gonna go for your helmet here, well, here, I'll just go down here. So for this one, you would want Shredder, because this has the multi-hit. So direct attacks give you Empower and give you multi-hit. And they reduce the target's armor by 2.5%. And then for the helmet here, Barrage. When you multi-hit with the direct damage, gain in power, increases your multi-hit rating, stacks 5 times. For the chest piece, you can either go with full strength here or flurry. Those are both viable options for a medic or an engineer. Since flurry increases critical hit chance and multi-hit chance, it's still probably going to be this one, but full strength is also pretty decent as well. It gives you vigor and lifesteal, and since you might not have that much health regeneration, this could also be another option. And for boots, you can't craft any fusion runes for your boots, so you'll have to find those. Acrobat is a very common one you can stick in until you can find some others. Okay, so those are the fusion recommendations for those multi-hit classes. If you guys have any more questions about runes, or which ones that you'd want to use for this or that, more specific questions on min-maxing your stats and stuff like that, just leave comments in the video below, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can, okay? Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll get more coming to you soon.